alert hit my phone at 1013 a.m. A red bar across the Whoop app screaming strain when she was supposed to be sleeping. At 1038 a.m., my Ring camera blinked and recorded a man's silhouette carrying my wife's sand-dusted duffel through our gate. 10 minutes later, my sister texted, "Kayla just dropped Mikey. She said her muscles are rocks after a wad." I stood barefoot on our kitchen tile, listening to the Pacific whisper through the screen door and realizing the ocean wasn't the only thing breaking. I'm Leo, 33, network tech, ex-Navy, the guy you call when your routers spit smoke or your cameras stop telling the truth. San Diego's in my bones, salt in the air, Camp Pendleton up the coast like a memory, traffic that pretends it's not. My wife Kayla is a nurse on nights at Sharp. Her trainer is Mason, a retired Marine with the kind of voice that convinces you to do one more. Kayla calls him steel and discipline. She says I wouldn't get the early sessions because sand, sun, not my thing. That was cute the first time. Then it was a wall. She started training mornings, on the beach, and Saturdays turned into ruck and surf up in Carlsbad. If you don't know, rucking is hiking with a weighted pack that tells your body you're still in boot camp. There's a culture to it. People tate their shoulders like trophies. They talk about miles like confessions. At first, I was proud she found something that made her light up. I know what it's like to have a tribe. Then the bills came in like small, polite threats. Elite athletic wear on discount, but somehow our bank account didn't get the memo. Supplements that smelled like candy and cost like rent. A renewal for the fitness tracker. A second renewal for the data metrics add-on because it's more accurate. Kayla would laugh when I raised an eyebrow. "It's pro deal," she'd say, and kiss my cheek and reach for her keys. The kisses still smelled like ocean and something I didn't have a name for. The keys felt heavier. The first real crack wasn't the money. It was the quiet. She'd come home after a double burn, and the house would be so still you could hear the refrigerator think. She'd stand with the door half open, stare at the light like she meant to say something, then close it and walk past me as if walking past a mirror. "Long morning," she'd say. Wave sets were perfect. I'd nod like a man who knew wave sets from anything. I know packets and pings and the hum a modem makes when it's lying. The ocean is a different language. The body is another. The night the Ring saw Mason lift her bag over the threshold like a groom, I watched from the hallway, not breathing, arms crossed so tight my biceps cramped. His shape filled the frame for 2 seconds, 3. The camera's IR made everything look like a ghost doing something rude. He didn't step inside. He set the bag down, turned, and jogged back to the street. The hood of his sweatshirt made a small planet out of his head. Kayla followed a minute later, hair up, breath visible. She glanced at the camera without seeing it, like people do when they've learned to ignore their own reflection. I met her in the kitchen. She didn't startle. That bruised me in a small way I wasn't ready for. "You're home," I said. My voice sounded like I'd ironed it. "We pushed it today," she said, bright and tired at once. "Heavy sand rucks, then surf intervals. I'm jelly." "Between midnight and 2?" I asked. "Whoop says the red zone hit at 1:13. She laughed, but it bumped up against something. "Heh, look at you, data guy." "That's what it tracks," I said. "Sleep, strain, recovery. If I'm awake at 1 a.m., it's because somebody's router forgot what day it is." "I lost track of time," she said. "We lost track, all of us. It was a good flow." "Is that why Mason carried your bag through our gate?" I asked. "He's got a good flow for canvas handles." She blinked. The blink was slow, like she was trying on 3 faces at once and none fit. He dropped it. "We were parked weird. It's nothing." "Nothing is a word people use when the something is too bright," I said. "My sister says you dropped Mikey with her for the WOD." "The WOD was at 1? "My muscles are rocks," she said, almost a joke. Then her mouth softened as if she tasted how that sounded. "Leo?" "It's late," I said. "He's asleep at my sister's. I'm going to bed." I didn't sleep. I lay on my back and counted my breaths and watched the red numbers on the alarm melt minutes like cheap candy. Around 3, I got up and made coffee that tasted like a dare. At 4, the blue came through the window and the neighborhood stopped pretending it was somebody else. At 6, Kayla showered. I heard the water hit the tile and imagined every drop counting us down to something that hadn't been written yet. At 8, I drove to my sister's place in Claremont. She opened the door in a robe with a toddler on one hip and our son's backpack on the other. Mikey barreled past me and threw himself at the dog, who accepted the impact like a saint. "What happened?" my sister asked. No preamble. "Nothing," I said. "Don't do that," she said. "You look like you slept under a truck." She said, "WAD. Is that Navy for women on deck?" "Workout of the day," I said. CrossFit language. It's like pig Latin for pain. "You okay?" she said, in the tone people use when okay is a door you can step through or not. I looked at my son on the floor, at the dog pretending to die because the attention was too much, at the cereal bowl in the sink, at the way my sister had put a sticky note on the fridge that said lunch money with a smiley face because it made her laugh to treat a refrigerator like a bank. "I don't know," I said, "but I know how to find out." "How?" she asked. "Logs," I said. "There's always a log." When you spend your days making cameras tell the truth and your nights fixing the lies, you learn to trust the boring things. Timestamps, IP addresses, key presses. People think cheating is a heartbeat and a kiss. Sometimes it's that. More often, it's a spreadsheet. I started with the easy stuff: bank transactions, fitness subscriptions, a line item for a Whoop strap upgrade that shouldn't be necessary unless the first one learned secrets it couldn't keep, receipts for high-end leggings that cost what our car's tires cost, discounted to numbers that still made me whistle, charges marked wellness that grouped together on weekends like friends at a concert. Then the ring events: 1038 AM, bag drop, 5020 OM, gate opens, 5024 AM, gate closes, a second silhouette, tall and fluid, moving the other way. The name in the cloud for the secondary user on our Ring account, Kayla. The fingerprint for the person who shared access with Mason at some point, blacked out behind an anonymized email with a Marine Corps joke in it. I could have spiraled. I didn't. The Navy taught me how not to be my own chaos. I made a folder called Proof. I hated the name. I kept it anyway. I looked at her. What metrics? If you're not familiar, it's a band around your wrist that tells you how much you pushed and how well you recovered. Wildly useful. Also, unforgiving. Kayla's recovery scores were green, green, yellow, and then a string of reds at hours that made no sense if she was asleep or if the hardest thing she lifted was a med cart. The strain curve spiked at 12,041 AM, eased at 1,013, bumped again at 1,049, and fell to normal by 2,000. I don't need to paint it for you. You can paint it yourself. I screenshotted those charts and put them in the folder. I set the folder to private because making a shrine to hurt felt wrong. At lunch, I drove the 5 up to Carlsbad because road noise feels like armor when your head won't shut up. I got off near Tamarack and found the beach lot where the Ruckers like to meet before sunrise. A whiteboard leaned against a truck bed, the tailgate down like a stage. The marker ghosts of yesterday's workout were still visible: Ruck 6, beach sprints 10x, surf intervals, core burn. A ranger in a green hat rolled by and tipped his cap like he'd seen it all twice. I stood and listened to the ocean practice its lines. "Retreat on Saturday?" a guy asked, friendly and flat. He wore a weight vest and a grin he'd earned. "Thinking about it," I said. He pointed down the bluff. "We used to meet south, but HOA at those condos got twitchy. They started clocking our comings and goings. Can you imagine? Violation letters over barefoot people and water. People hate life." "HOA?" I asked, careful casual. "Homeowners Association," he said. "Little governments with clipboards." They pulled the intercom logs, parking cameras, the whole thing. He laughed, but it didn't touch his eyes. Mason had to move the key boxes to the other building. The key boxes, I repeated, because sometimes you need an echo to believe a word exists. Yeah, he said. He rents out a block of units for retreats under his Wellness LLC. It's like a company so he can write off the kombucha. People stay, ruck, surf, do breathing, cry about their dads, whatever. It's good for some. HOA hates it when we're loud. I get it. I don't get it. He shrugged and jogged off because his heart needed to beat again. Wellness, LLC, key boxes, intercom logs, parking cameras. That's not a rumor, that's a map. I know buildings. I know that a camera hung too high sees the wrong things, and that a lobby's intercom keeps a diary. I know that a key box remembers who kissed its metal mouth. And I know HOAs, paper tigers that roar when someone parks an inch over a line and goes silent when something actually dangerous happens. I decided to bet on this one roaring. Nothing righteous, just loud. I went home and wrote a letter to the building owner where Mason ran his retreats. Not a manifesto. A dry, careful note with 4 sentences that mattered and 2 attachments that would make a lawyer smile. I introduced myself as a resident of San Diego concerned about unpermitted commercial use of residential units. I attached screenshots of the Wellness, LLC's public-facing weekend reset, flyer showing the exact address cropped from a photo of a welcome board. I attached a list of violations from the city's website for short-term rentals. I gave them an email to reach me and a phone number I only use for work issues. Then I wrote the HOA board, because if you want to make a hornet's nest hum, you throw it a rulebook. Within 24 hours, I got a reply from an address ending in umanzanahoa.org. The subject line read, "Logs available." The body said, "We have noticed increased use of the intercom and garage after quiet hours. We have video of a couple returning at 1038 a.m. with wine and blankets. We are in the process of issuing fines to any owner subleasing. Would you like copies for your records?" A man named Frank signed it, board president, with a phone number and a time he was available to call because HOAs are also lonely. I called. Frank had that voice every HOA president gets with practice. Too calm. He told me the board had been trying to get ahead of a party culture that didn't suit the building. He told me they'd issued warnings and someone had responded with emojis. He told me about motion cameras in the garage and about logs of code entries in the lobby. We're not cops, he said, but people buy peace and then get noise. Can I get that 1038 clip? I asked. My palms were sweating. You could have wrung them out and filled a shot glass. He emailed me a link to a private folder. I clicked. There it was, Kayla and Mason stepping through the lobby doors at 1038 a.m. She had a blanket slung over one shoulder. He held a bag and a bottle with foil around the neck. The foyer lights made everyone look a little more honest than they want to be. Kayla's hair was wet. Mason had the posture of a man who believes gravity is for other people. I put the clip in my proof folder and labeled it Garage 138. I watched it exactly twice. Once to know. A second time to know I knew. Then I closed it. That night, Kayla came home with a foam roller the size of a torpedo. She leaned it in the corner and stretched like a dancer who wanted someone to watch her strength. Saturday, she said. We're heading up again. It's a big one. Ruck and surf, plus cold plunge, breath work, the whole reset. Airbnb? I said. She froze for a half second. You wouldn't notice it if she were a stranger. When you've slept next to someone for 6 years, you notice when a breath decides which way to go. It's not Airbnb, she said. It's his LLC. He books a block. So commercial use of residential, I said. She rolled her eyes like I'd told her the Latin name for sand. Are you going to make everything a regulation? When it protects me and our kid, yeah, I said. Some rules are shelters. She shrugged. You've always needed a manual. And you've always liked breaking in new rooms, I said. That was cheap. I heard it and wanted to pull it back with tongs. It was also fair. It sat between us like a wet towel no one wanted to pick up. I'm not explaining my training to you every week, she said. You don't listen. You wait to pounce. I'm listening now, I said, and I didn't pounce. I logged. She laughed once, sharp. Of course you did. On Friday, the day before the next retreat, I stopped by the gym where Mason likes to turn people into myth. It's a warehouse tucked behind an auto body place off Marina Boulevard, the kind of gym that smells like iron and men trying to erase something. The music was loud enough to make my sternum vibrate. People flipped tires like they'd personally been insulted by rubber. Mason stood on a plywood platform calling cadence the way Marines call weather. I waited until the set ended. He clapped a guy on the back and turned toward the office to grab a shaker bottle. I stepped into his path. He didn't register me as a person until I didn't move when he tried to go around. You Leo? He asked. How many husbands do you know? I said. He smiled, not friendly. More than you think. I handed him an envelope. Inside was a copy of the HOA's violation letter, a still from the 1038 AM video, and a copy of my note to the building owner with the case number for the city's complaint line written in the corner. My handwriting looked like a man trying not to dig too hard. He flipped through it and made a face like he'd been given homework. You think this is a good look? He said. Running to the board? I think this is the look where we stop pretending you're a trainer who accidentally rents houses, I said. We're done pretending you're a good idea. He stepped closer. He was taller than me by an inch or two. He might as well have been a mountain for how some part of me felt. Another part of me didn't care. I've stood on decks and seas that made men weep. A man in a gym is just a shape. You want to take this outside? He asked, low. The kind of low meant to draw a circle around two men and light it on fire. No, I said. Outside is where kids play. He snorted. You Navy guys always got jokes. This isn't a joke, I said. You lose the block. You lose the sublease. You stop using my wife as a key. What my clients do is not your. You used her credentials. You used her back. You used her calendar, I said. She'll deal with me. You'll deal with the board and the owner. And taxes, if they feel like waking up. For a second, I saw something like calculation flicker behind his eyes. Then the mask slid back on. I got a class, he said. You done? Not quite, I said. Saturday at 9, I'll be in the lot. If I see her with a pack and a blanket, I'll hand these to the owner in person. If I don't, I'll consider the point made. He laughed, but it sounded like a door closing on a hand. See you in the lot, sailor. I left. In the van, my hands shook so hard I had to lay them flat on my thighs and breathe like a beginner. I texted my sister to keep Mikey overnight. I told her I might be late Saturday morning. She sent back a heart and then, a second later, a knife emoji as a joke. I stared at the knife and felt nothing like triumph. Saturday came dressed in marine layer, that soft gray that makes the city look like it cares about you. I parked by the gym and watched the lot fill. Trucks, Subarus, a surprising number of compact cars with yoga mats rolled artfully across the back seat. Laughter that was too loud. A pile of Rucks stacked like promises. Mason arrived at 8045, early, crisp. The kind of man who thinks wearing a hat is a decision. He scanned the lot the way a shepherd counts sheep and wolves. He saw me and gave me a two-finger salute so small it hurt my teeth. At 8:57, Kayla walked out of the gym with her pack on. She looked strong and tired, and like a person about to step onto a road she couldn't unwalk. She saw me and stopped. People flowed around her like a stream around a rock. Mason gestured toward the group. She stayed put. Good. I need to talk to you, she said when she reached me. It wasn't a plea. It was the voice of a nurse asking for a crash cart. We will, I said. After this. After what? She asked. I held up a second envelope, a letter to the building owner, the HOA logs, the fine schedule, the screenshot of you and Mason at 1038 a.m. with wine and blankets, the outline of the Wellness LLC registration and how short-term rentals work when they're illegal. If you get in the truck, I hand this over. If you get in your car and go home, I take this to my shredder. Your call. Her face drained. Then color came back in a wave that made my heart ache because I used to be the man who brought color to her. She looked at Mason. He was talking to a pair of 20-somethings about foot care, like a guru explaining feet to a cave. He saw her look and cut his sentence in half. "You wouldn't," she said to me, but there wasn't fear in it. There was the last of the story that makes you the hero in your own house. "I would," I said, "not to ruin you, to stop him. There's a difference." "If you do this," she said, "he'll drop me." "If you don't do this," I said, "I'll drop me. I can't be the man who knows and pretends he doesn't." For a long second, we just breathed. The marine layer thinned, the lot sounds got big and small and big again. Somewhere, a gull laughed like a drunk. "Okay," she said at last. "I'm not going." "Okay," I said. "I hate you," she said, but it sounded like she hated gravity. "I know," I said. "I don't hate you. That's how I know this is the right thing." "Don't say right like you invented it," she said. "You're not a judge." "I'm a dad," I said. "It's close." She turned and called to Mason. "I'm out," she said. He looked at her with that slow disbelief face people practice when they've been told they're a son. "What?" he said. "I'm out," she repeated louder. "Figure it out without me." He started toward us, but I stepped forward and held the envelope like a quiet bomb. He stopped. He doesn't scare easy, but even men like him read paper. "You think this is over?" he asked. "I think the sublease is," I said. "And the block. And the key box codes you keep sending in text like a teenager." He smiled, small, ugly. "You going to file for divorce too, sailor?" I said. He grinned wider like he'd won nothing. "Tell your lawyer to tell my lawyer to tell hers to call me," he said, then turned and clapped his hands so loud it clapped a few people's hearts. "Let's go," he barked. "Ruck's up." The group moved to trucks. Kayla stood for a beat like a post in rising water. Then she walked to her car, took off the pack, and sat in the driver's seat with both hands on the wheel like it was the first time she'd seen a circle. She didn't start the engine. After a while, she did. After another while, she pulled out. I waited for the convoy to go. I walked into the gym office and asked the kid at the desk for a manager. He disappeared into a back room and came out with a woman in a polo with the gym's logo and a gaze like she could tell if you were lying from 50 yards. I introduced myself. I handed her the envelope. "You have an illegal block of short-term rentals being used for events," I said. "Here's the HOA's letter. Here's your trainer with a bottle and my wife on the building cameras at 1038 a.m. Here's the code of violations and the city's complaint number. I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here to give you something to work with before the city puts your logo on a report." She read the cover letter and didn't look surprised. "We'll handle it," she said. Her voice was granite with a little mercy in it. "I'm sorry." "It's not your apology to make," I said. "It is if it happened on my watch," she said. I nodded. "Then, thank you." I walked to my van and sat until my heart stopped pretending it was a drum. I didn't feel good. I felt finished. There's a difference. By Monday, Mason lost the block. The HOA sent a building-wide notice reminding owners that subleasing was grounds for fines and loss of privileges. The owner of the unit sent an email through a law firm whose name sounded like it had dark wood and an espresso machine. Effective immediately, any wellness-related events are prohibited. The Wellness LLC's Instagram pivoted to pop-up ice baths in public parks, a downgrade anyone with eyes could read. Kayla's access to the key boxes was revoked. I didn't dance. My body isn't built for dancing while a house rearranges itself. I filed for divorce. Dry forms. Names like dollars. Boxes that read primary physical custody and joint legal custody and property. I included a one-page sheet of unreimbursed medical expenses because the culture of these papers is to include everything even when your soul wants a fire. My lawyer was a woman who didn't blink. "You're doing this clean," she said. "Keep doing it clean." I did. Kayla and I had our first real talk in the parking lot at her sister's place in El Cajon, under a jacaranda that drops purple flowers like confetti when you don't want a party. I handed her a manila envelope with the settlement proposal and the intake sheet for the county's parenting class. "What do you want me to say?" she asked. "The truth," I said. "Once, you crossed the line." She looked down at her shoes. They were the expensive ones that promised to make you run even if your body's exhausted. "I did," she said. "Okay," I said. "That matters." "I didn't mean." "You did mean," I said. "Or you meant something until it meant you. It doesn't change the math." "Are you going to make me tell our son?" she asked, small, like a nurse asking a doctor for a different order. "No," I said. "We tell him the weather. We don't tell him the news. He's 6. He needs clarity, not detail." "What do we say?" she asked. "That sometimes grown-ups don't live together," I said. "That he's safe. That we love him. That schedules are boxes to help us remember soft things." She nodded. Her eyes were glass and not. "I am sorry," she said. I believed her in exactly the amount you can believe. Someone who's sorry that she found the cliff and stepped anyway. It was enough to not hate her. It wasn't enough to stay. We told Mikey on a Wednesday afternoon when the city smelled like heat and cut grass. He listened, serious and small. He asked if he could have 2 toothbrushes, one blue for here and one green for Mom's. He asked if the dog was shared or just borrowed. He asked if his birthday would still be at the park with the rocket slide. We said yes to all the things we could say yes to. We said no to nothing in front of him. After that, life turned into a track I could run. Overtime at work to fold the stupid LLC charges back into our balance, routers that needed coaxing at midnight, cameras that had to learn hard lessons about shadows. The morning wave sounded like the word peace said by someone who's old enough to mean it. I took Mikey to Moonlight Beach, early before the kooks made it messy. We built a fort that could barely hold itself, and he pretended it was a castle, and I pretended not to be the dragon. We ate breakfast burritos on the tailgate of the van, and he wiped salsa on his sleeve, and I didn't scold him because the sleeve was already a history book. The wellness crew kept rucking, but the retreats got quieter, farther apart. HOA letters are like rain. Annoying, everywhere, impossible to fight without a roof. Mason moved some sessions to open sand, where no one can fine you for tasting the air. I saw him once at the waterline. We locked eyes. He nodded once. Not respect. Not disdain. A simple acknowledgement, this happened. Then he turned away and shouted at a man about ankle position. Kayla moved into a small place in La Mesa with a balcony that looks out over a nail salon and a strip of sky. She made it look lovely in the way she can make anything look lovely for 18 minutes. Whether the loveliness holds is on the wind. When she drops Mikey off, she stands with her hands in the pockets of her hoodie like she's trying to hold on to herself. We talk about who's paying for cleats and which night's homework is an animal we have to trap. We don't talk about Mason. In the way that matters, he's a piece of old furniture someone left on the curb. The court stamped our divorce in June, a PDF that looked like a lab report telling you, "You're not dying, just different now." My lawyer called and said, "Congratulations," and I laughed because it was a funeral in a suit. Then I felt lighter than a man holding a piece of paper should feel. That's what clean buys you, not joy, air. I keep the proof folder, not because I plan to open it, because there's a stubborn part of me that respects record keeping. I also keep a different folder in the kitchen drawer that holds drawings of sharks and a schedule for T-ball and a note from my sister that says, "Proud of you" in handwriting that looks like she wrote it on a moving bus. You can live with two folders near each other if you're careful. Sometimes, when Mikey is asleep and the dog has dream chased something impossible, I sit on the back steps and listen to the ocean do what it did before any of us were born. It's not quiet, not really. It's a constant that sounds like the world deciding to be gentle anyway. I match my breath to it like I did on Night Watch. In the Navy, the best mornings are the fifth day out, when your body stops arguing and the ship becomes a place inside you. That's what my house feels like now. The sand gets everywhere. The sheets are the cheap ones you can bleach and not cry. The candle on the table smells like laundry and not like weather. I like it more. Kayla texted me once, late, a picture of her feet in the ocean at dawn. "I miss us," she wrote. I stared at the screen until the letters looked like shapes. I typed, "I miss who we were," and didn't send it. Then I typed, "Mikey's school needs a signed permission slip for the tide pool field trip," and sent that instead. She replied with a thumbs up, which in our new language means the job will be done. You might want to know if I forgave her. Forgiveness is a word people throw like confetti when the party is over. I chose to stop bleeding in the place where she cut me. I chose to stop asking a wound to be a window. If that's forgiveness, okay. If it's not, that's okay too. Sometimes healing looks like making a sandwich and not mailing anyone pain. On a Sunday, after the paperwork settled and the overtime cracked our debt like a stubborn shell, I took Mikey to the pier. Fishermen leaned over the rail like they were telling the water a secret. A pelican watched them with the patience of someone who believes in mistakes. The surf was small, the kind of day where beginners think they can do anything, and the ocean nods and says, "Try." Mikey looked at the water and at me. "Do waves get tired?" he asked. "Sure," I said. "They break so they can rest." "Do dads?" he asked. "Sure," I said. "But they don't break, they bend." He nodded like that was science. He pointed at a surfer falling and laughed that innocent, brutal laugh kids have when they see a grown-up become gravity's favorite. I laughed too. It didn't feel mean. It felt like relief. When we walked back to the car, a group of Ruckers stomped past with packs and earnest faces. One of them had a shirt that read, "Discipline is freedom. Good for him." I held my son's hand. Freedom is also a small boy who trusts you to get him to the bathroom on time. The next morning at 5, before the trucks on the 5 remembered they were late, I stood on our tiny patch of grass and listened. The wave of quiet rolled in off the dark like a friend who doesn't talk much. It was smoother than any surf, softer than any shirt, more faithful than any promise said under a pull-up bar. I made coffee. I packed a lunch that wouldn't leak. I checked the calendar that now tells the truth. Then I went to work and fixed a camera that kept insisting the night was noon. Some equipment is stubborn. You teach it slowly. You show it how to see again. Would you have marched into that gym and lit the fuse, or waited like I did with letters and logs until the system did what it was supposed to do? And when your gut knows before the paper does, what would you count as proof numbers on a screen, a camera's gray-eyed memory, or the sound of a key in your own front gate at 1038 a.m.? If this story hit you anywhere real, I'd appreciate a like, your take in the comments, and a subscribe for more.